What's going on, everyone? This is Andrew O'Connell with Pristine Capital, coming at you with yet another market recap video. It is March 22nd, 2021. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy this content, and I will continue to make it for you. Today we're going to be talking about the price action in the indices. We'll go under the hood and check out our sectors and style factors. We'll talk about some of my trades for the day, and we'll wrap up with some options order flow. But before we jump in, quick risk disclaimer, as always, nothing in this video should be construed as investment advice or recommendations. Please follow your own trading plan and your own risk parameters. And last but not least, do not YOLO your entire account into any one of my trades. All right, so let's jump right into it today. Another interesting day of price action. So hope everyone had an awesome weekend. On this fine Monday, we had the S&P 500 finish up 0.8%. We had the NASDAQ QQQ finish up 1.75%. We had the IWM small caps finish down 0.75%. And we had the Dow Jones finish up 0.38%. So if I pull up our daily chart of the S&P 500 here, you can see that, we had this downtrend, then we mooned all the way higher. We broke out above this value area high, and it looked like, here we are, we're in the clear. The road to 4,000 is in sight. Then we had a couple of, rough days in the market last week. This was definitely pretty tough here. We pulled back to our 20-day simple moving average. We jumped back into the monthly value area. And you can see here, today we had a nice green candle. There's a lot of reasons to be fearful in this market right now. Everyone's talking about, hyperinflation or inflationary pressures, stimulus being withdrawn, tax hikes. There's essentially like a wall of worry in the market right now. And today you can see for this Monday, we closed above our 20-day simple moving average. We closed above the 5-day exponential moving average. And we traded above this monthly value area high, but we were not able to close above it. So you can see, in typical ambiguous fashion, we closed right at that monthly value area high. And you can see right now, ES Futures opened up a couple of minutes ago. You can see we're up 0.11% in the night session here. I was actually just on the earnings call for Enthusiast Gaming. That is a stock that I own in my account, and we are long for Pristine Capital. I really like that stock. They came out with some really nice earnings. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in tomorrow's pre-market session, specifically what they reported. But essentially for their direct sales, it was pretty mind-boggling. Some highlights, for direct sales, they're going to do in Q1 of 2021 the same volume that they did in all of 2020. So there's some really interesting things to go through with the earnings release. But let's pull up the NASDAQ here. Just talk about what happened today. So yeah, you can see for today's candle, we pushed all the way up to this monthly value area low, and we actually pressed off that level, and we ended up closing below it. If we look at our hourly chart, because this has really been like a tale of two markets with this whole growth versus value dynamic. And you can see it was like, oh my gosh, we opened pretty much right at this point of control where most of the transactions have taken place. We pushed above this weekly value area, and then we kind of dribbled lower into the close. Yeah, overall, pretty bullish day. Small caps, which had been leading, actually took a bit of a break today. And you can see pulled back, but they remained above this 20-period simple moving average. And then the Dow Jones, was red at one point, but it had a pretty strong close and a nice green candle. So let's pull up our Finviz heat map here. And you can see that, we're getting more give back from that recovery trade. Of course, like once everyone starts talking about it and you can't be invested in growth, you have to be in value. Of course, that's when we start to get some profit taking in those areas. So you can see here, energy was down. We had some of the travel names down, and this is kind of interesting because, Carnival Cruise Lines and Royal Caribbean, they were both down big on the day. And I believe it was Royal Caribbean that released, hey, we're going to be back to sailing by XYZ date. So I do think with a lot of these recovery names where the businesses have really been hindered, I think the big investment opportunity in those names was, okay, the economy shut down, but we know it's going to reopen and eventually these guys will get back to operations. But I think once you get that finality of, okay, now they finally announced it and they're, going to start working, that's like, all right, well, the big investment opportunity is kind of over. So we'll have to see how those guys continue to perform, but definitely some profit taking today. But yeah, all these FANG names ended up closing positive. Semis closed positive. I'm currently long Micron. Yeah, and some really nice action today. One thing that was interesting, though, there was a lot of, fades in the price action. So like Tesla, for instance, you can see here at one point, this was like, oh my gosh, is Tesla about to jump back into the value area? And it ended up closing, on the lows, big red candle. So yeah, we're still seeing a lot of these growth names. Every time there's a rip, there are players that come in and sell the rip. Facebook, this was a name that was on the Pristine Capital watch list. And this was another one where at one point it was like, oh my gosh, we're heading above 300. Then you can see, a little bit of selling off the top here as well. But yeah, overall, we're getting, this is day 2 of this rotation back into, the FANG names and technology from these reopening trades. So if we take a look at our sector sheet today, we have a pretty mixed bag here. So you can see regional banks, which had been very hot, down 3.15%. We had the blockchain ETF down 4%. We're actually getting a bit of a corrective sequence in Bitcoin. Not really anything crazy, but it has pretty much been red hot, while even like the growth names have been correcting. So now we're getting a little bit of a corrective sequence in blockchain. And then you can also see these ARK funds finished positive for the day. Solar stocks finished positive as well. One thing that's kind of interesting, we did get some of these more defensive areas closing up on the day. Like if you look at our sector sheet, or our style factor sheet, you can see here we had a big sell-off in cyclicals here. This is the value ETF. But you can see momentum had a really nice day. Growth had a nice day. And then you can see the defensives also finished really nicely as well. Defensives and Minvol. So it definitely looks like, we're seeing some flows back into mega cap tech. I saw some flows back into consumer staples. So let me actually take a look here. Yeah, so you can see consumer staples, closing nicely. XLU, yeah, that one closed down 0.14%. But yeah, really just a big sell-off in the cyclicals and the high beta stocks. So it's almost like, everybody's been mentally gearing up for this rotation into those areas. And now, we're just getting, I don't want to call it a rug pull, but finally a correction in some of those names. Because if you look, this value ETF, let's take a look at it right here. Yeah, so you can see it actually just tagged the 20-day. So I called this out when it was up here, like, oh my gosh, these value names are really getting extended. Now we finally got the correction, to the 20-day. So this, assuming this trend continues, is more of like a buyable area for some of these value stocks. So if we pull up, let me just lower this. All right. Yeah, and some of the names I was looking at, we had Caterpillar, which you can see, this one ends up closing green, but pretty much like nice tight pullback to the 20-day simple moving average. Deere, this one, still hasn't even pulled back to the 20-day. This one is very strong. And then we'll see. Let's take a look at my trades, and you'll see the one that I put on. So today my game plan really was to just sell the rip in as much as I could do. So you could see here for options trades, I had some gold puts that I put on as protection. I stopped out of those because I saw a bullish moving average crossover here. So if you look, gold, you can see it's put in 4 consecutive green candles. It's really not showing any weakness here, and you can see now it's holding that 20-day simple moving average. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to stop out of this. This, it just doesn't really look like a proper setup for a short in gold. This actually looks like it could be forming like somewhat of a bullish setup here if it just continues to base at this level. So stopped out of those. Then the other options trade that I did put on was I went long some materials, the XLB ETF. I took some June 18th 77 strike calls. Took those on for a 385. And the materials, just look pretty nice because everyone is talking about this inflation narrative. And we're finally getting a little bit of a corrective sequence in materials. So you can see here, I ended up putting in a green candle, but failed at the 5-day EMA. But you can see, getting very close to this 20-day simple moving average. So it's no longer as overbought. I ended up taking a quick target in the materials ETF. I closed out half my position for 395, really just because this market has been so choppy. This has been happening to me a lot where like I'll enter a trade intraday, I'm positive, and then the next day it'll be like a rotation out of that area. So for me, like given how choppy this environment is, I reduced some positions today into the strength, and then also, I want to make sure to take some quick targets. My cat's like scratching the chair here. I want to make sure to take some quick targets, basically just to reduce my cost basis on some of these trades. So I took a quick target there. Then I traded some stocks as well. Oh my gosh, Coco, stop it. My cat Coco is scratching my chair. Hey. So yeah, you can see or some stock trading. So I set a stop order for my XPEL. That's more of like a cyclicals name, just in case, it continues to move lower. I closed out of my digital turbine. I'd already taken a target in my APPS shares. Closed this one out for $83.01. I had paid $79.09. This one ended up continuing to run throughout the day. So this one, this just sort of happens as a trader. I still hold my APPS, in our long-term trend portfolio, because this is a name that I really just want to stay invested in. But for my trading account, I closed out of it. And APPS, it's been doing this thing where, it'll have like a nice gap up and then it'll just completely fail and just, drag lower throughout the day. Early in the session, it was looking like it might do that. So I ended up closing this one out for $83. But we'll see. I might re-enter either if we get some sort of dip or if we can break out above this monthly value area. Yeah, close that one out for some nice gains. And then, I closed out my Twitter. I stopped out of it. My average cost was $67.51. I stopped out for $65.15. And this one, especially with this price action, I just want to make sure that if something doesn't really look, like it's setting up properly, I want to exit. So Twitter, there's like the news that former President Donald Trump is forming his own social media company. I noticed Twitter, a lot of times it is very sensitive to like headlines and news like that. But you can see it closed below this monthly value area. You can see, look at all these red candles it's putting in. This doesn't really look right to me. And it's selling off on accelerating volume. So this just, I might re-enter it at a later date if it starts to shape up a little bit. But this one, it looks like it could definitely head to this 50-day simple moving average. So yeah, I took a stop on that one. And then I added, and this one looks pretty good. So I added some tap. This is Molson Coors for $49.48. This one you can see here. This one looks very interesting. This one you can see it's breaking out of this monthly value area. It's above the 20-day simple moving average. It's above the 5-day EMA. This one, sold off on earnings, and it's been creeping higher. And one thing I find, super interesting here is if you look at these green candles, these green candles are coming on high relative volume. And it kind of looks like there's some institution that's accumulating shares here. So this one is definitely like a more under the radar name. But I see there's a VPOC up here at 52. So that's, likely a place I will take a target if it gets there. But yeah, this one, I think it's sort of like a under the radar name that I think could run. I don't think many people are expecting this one to make a move, but it is breaking out here. Then I also added this one, BEKE. This one is a Chinese equity. And you can see here this one's been kind of chopping around, had a pretty violent correction here with these other Chinese names. It was showing some relative strength today compared to the other Chinese equities. And you can see here, put in a green candle, nothing too crazy, but this one is jumping back into the monthly value area. So this one, I have a level set to potentially take a target at around like $660 or $67, right around this point of control. Then another one, just to clean things up a little bit, I stopped out of my Camping World. In Camping World, you can see here, in this one, it's also kind of showing that like distributive behavior where we're getting a bunch of these red candles kind of clustering. It's kind of having trouble holding this value area high. So yeah, I figured I would just stop out of this one. Definitely just wanted to get a little bit lighter because, one thing I talked about in today's pre-market webinar is, it's really helped in this market to sell the strength. And it's so tough to do because on a day like today, you see like, oh my gosh, the NASDAQ's up 1.75%. I need to start adding positions. But time and time again, like for Facebook, this is one where if you were set up properly, you could have entered this one, on the open if you were prepared for it and maybe even taken a target. But for anyone that's sort of like chased it at the highs, they're already down on their position. Same thing with Tesla. Same thing. Like I was watching this name throughout the day, MGNI. And this one at certain points in the day it was up like 5%. So it's just a market where like, it's very tough to buy things like on the high of the day and, immediately be in the money. So for that reason, I was like, as this market continues to advance, I want to take some positions off. And I want to take off the ones that were not working as well. So that is that. Let's talk about the options order flow for today. And you can see here, we got a lot of bullish orders come in. In the morning, it looks like there were some hedgers, for Tesla and ARK. But then you can see, we had some calls coming in for NVIDIA, Facebook. Looks like players are buying the dip in the financials. Some call activity for Amazon. So overall, pretty light day for the options order flow. And then you can see, as the rally started to fade, then we started to get, some put activity as well. One thing I will also note, and this is another thing I'm going to talk about more in tomorrow's pre-market webinar. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. Well, last thoughts here. The S&P 500, we are approaching month end. Right now it's March 22nd. We have the rest of this week, and then when next Wednesday will be month end for March. And typically, over the past couple months of 2021, the end of the month has been pretty rough. If you take a look here. So even now, like, hopefully we resolve to the upside tomorrow. But even now, I'm like looking at this, and I'm like, this be the start of like a little downtrend here. So that's something I'm going to be thinking about, if we get any strength tomorrow or anything like that. But with that being said, that about does it for this market recap video. Hope you all had an awesome trading day, and I will see you all in tomorrow's pre-market webinar.